Hey guys, how you going? This is BillyEatWorld, and today we're going to take a look at the semi-auto rifles in BF1. And that's because, as you guys probably know, I'm a huge fan of the DMRs in BF4, and so naturally they were the first thing I wanted to pick up in BF1. The big question is though, how similar are the new semi-autos to the DMRs we all know and love from the older games? Well, that's what we're going to take a look at today, and hopefully by the end of this video, you guys will have a much better idea of how they work. Before we get into the stats though, I should point out that the first thing you need to know about these guns is that they're no longer all-kit weapons. And what I mean by this is that in BF1, they're actually exclusive to the medic class, which is kind of like the old assault kit from BF4. Also, I should point out that as well as the DMRs, there's no assault rifles or carbines anymore. And so that means, whether you like it or not, you're gonna have to learn to love the semi-autos, because I can tell you, you're gonna be seeing a lot more of them in BF1. But anyway, to kick off our comparison, the first big difference you're gonna notice is that a lot of the new semi-autos also have a fully auto mode. And the reason for this is because basically DICE aren't trying to fit these guns into the same pocket the DMRs fitted into back in BF4. For example, if you take a look at all the different types of guns in BF1, you'll see that they all have a sweet spot where they tend to dominate everything else. And so considering that there also aren't any assault rifles or carbines, you can see the semi-autos have got some pretty big shoes to fill. What that means is that the semi-autos are probably a bit more like the battle rifles in Hardline, except that they're a lot worse at close range. And that's because even though, like I said, some of them have got a fully auto mode, it's not really true full auto like what you'd see on a modern gun. Rather than being like a mechanical feature, the fully auto mode on these guns is basically like if you were using a macro to spam the trigger really fast. And that means even in full auto, these guns still fire very slowly, which means that you will need to be accurate in CQB if you want to stand a chance. Now, with that being said, in previous games, DMRs and battle rifles have always had these issues, but the way that they've made up for it is with a higher damage model. And sure enough, the semi-autos in BF1 do deal a lot of damage, but when you compare them with the DMRs in BF4, you can see that they are a lot less powerful. I mean, for example, the Mondragon, which is the gun that you can see in this video, fires at 257 RPM and deals a max damage of 40, which drops off to 35 at 30 meters. And so, as you can see, it doesn't even really compare to the Mark 11 from BF4, which fires at 260 RPM and deals 45, dropping off to 38 damage at 80 meters. Obviously, this is only just one of the semi-autos in BF1, but when you take a look at the other ones, well, they're probably even worse. For example, the Cell Rigotti deals 38 damage and drops off to 26.5, and the M1907 deals 43 damage and drops off to around 21. Also, in both cases, the damage drop-off is about half what it is in BF4, and that means it's really not that far before you get into that 4-shot kill range. And so, in other words, that basically means that apart from the Mondragon, the semi-autos in general are just not that good because they don't have enough of an advantage to really make them worthwhile. Now, obviously damage isn't the only important stat, so the question is, how do the semi-autos stack up in other areas? And well, in general, I'd have to say not very good because, most importantly, unlike in previous games this time around, they're also not very accurate. The base accuracy of the M39, for example, in BF3 was 0.025, but by BF4 and Hardline, it was up to around 0.125. But in comparison, the Mondragon in BF1 only comes in at 0.21, which is basically twice as inaccurate as most of the DMRs in BF4. With that being said though, I should point out that the moving and hipfire accuracy of all the semi-autos is slightly better than in previous games, and not just that, the muzzle velocity is a lot higher as well, which should make hitting long-range moving targets a little bit easier. The problem is though, to compensate for this, the devs have also increased the bullet drop by around 20%, which is a huge deal. And so all in all, even though they do have some advantages, I think it's pretty obvious that when you weigh up all the pros and cons, in general, they still come out a lot worse. Now, bearing all of this in mind, to finish up, I should point out that obviously there are a few really good reasons why the semi-autos aren't as good, but most importantly, like I said, it's because they're not just a replacement for the DMRs, which explains why they're less accurate but more mobile. Also, like I said, all the guns in BF1 have their own niche now, and so from what I can see, that's allowed DICE to make everything a bit weaker across the board. And so what that means is that even though you won't do quite as well at long or close range anymore, you will be pretty much the king of mid-range. With that being said though, even though I know why they've been balanced this way, to be honest, I just don't like them as much. And that's not because they don't look cool or sound cool, because they really do, they just don't work the way I want them to yet. You never know though, we've only got to try out 3 of these guns so far, and after all, the game is still only in closed alpha. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens in the final release, and hopefully some of the other semi-autos we haven't seen yet will bring back that DMR magic. But anyway guys, that just about wraps up this video, so let me know what you think in the comment section below, and as always, if you like what you see, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Also, check out the links in the description below if you want to see any more of my videos, or if you want to support my channel on Patreon. And until next time, see you later, and have a good one.